What's going on, guys? I'm here today with my recap and thoughts of the Minnesota Vikings and Detroit Lions game yesterday at Ford Field. It was the first divisional game for both teams this season, and the Vikings had already gotten off to a surprising 2-1 start after a win against the 49ers, and the Lions are coming off of an overtime loss to the Tennessee Titans. And I had predicted a Minnesota Vikings win in this game. They are my favorite team. I've liked a lot of what I've seen from them, especially against the San Francisco 49ers. I was hoping they wouldn't get too overconfident and carry some of that success into yesterday, and I had predicted a Minnesota victory 23-20. And indeed, the Vikings did come away with the victory by a score of 20-13. But there are some things in this game that definitely caught my eye. I just want to talk about a few things. Now, the Vikings had so much momentum going into this game after beating the Niners convincingly at home, a heavy dose of a balanced offense, and then there was just great defense, great overall performance. And I thought we'd see a little bit better balanced offense from the Vikings this week, especially against the weak secondary from Detroit. But as I say, the Vikings tend to play differently on the road. And Detroit got a lot more pressure on Ponder than I thought they would actually get. I hadn't seen a whole lot this year from them, and I hadn't even heard Ndamukong Suh's name called all that often. I believe they were credited with 2 sacks yesterday. I see on the stat sheet here is 1 for Vanden Bosch, half for Averill, and half for Suh. And the Vikings, they ended up getting 5 of their own on Matt Stafford, who was hampered with an injury in this game. But I didn't really seem to notice any drop-off in his play. I thought he rebounded nicely after a couple of interception-prone games, first couple games of the season, and then he played well last week in Tennessee, but they couldn't get the victory thanks to their defense and special teams allowing 3 touchdowns. And once again this week, it was special teams for the Detroit Lions that really cost them, and it was from the very beginning in this game, and the Vikings never trailed once in this game, just like against San Francisco. I think the key for the Vikings, and actually any team in the NFL, especially when you're not exactly a high-tempo team like the Vikings are, they're not going to go out and score 30 points a game. Ponder's not going to pass for 300, but get off to a fast start. Either have a 80-yard drive and get at least a field goal, or you have Percy Harvin return a kick 105 yards to the house, and he did that. It was an easy touchdown for Percy. Definitely got me excited, and that propelled the Vikings to victory, along with a 77-yard punt return later by Marcus Sherrills that went for a touchdown as well. And so the Lions special teams has definitely been killing in the last 2 weeks and could have cost them a couple of victories, but we're not going to talk about all that speculation there. The fact is the Lions are now a 1-3 team, and they need this bye week right now to regroup, especially with a Philadelphia team in 2 weeks that they play. But the Lions' offense at the beginning did not surprise me at all. Their first play, they drew the Vikings offsides, and they threw a bomb to Calvin Johnson that was an interference penalty on Jamarcus Sanford. And so they had the ball immediately in Vikings territory, but the Vikings held them like they have to do if they're going to be playing and getting these victories. They have to hold these high-powered offenses to field goals, and that was big there for the Vikings to stop them after that big penalty. And it was clear the Vikings, like every other team in the NFL, are going to take Calvin Johnson out of the game as best as they can. They usually had Harrison Smith, from what I saw, over the top of him, who's been playing very physical. He actually jarred a ball loose of Megatron's hands in the end zone that made the Lions keep them to a field goal as well. And while I haven't been a big supporter of the Vikings Tampa 2 scheme now for a long time, they're starting to really maximize the potential of the scheme and are playing it very well, I think. They're limiting the big plays. They did not give up any big plays downfield other than that penalty in the first play of the game for the Lions offense. But Megatron had no deep catches downfield. Burleson, Titus Young, those guys didn't beat him deep. And the Vikings are also tackling very efficiently. I think it's been underlooked so far because you usually only look at tackling when teams can't do it. With the Vikings are playing very physical defense. They're playing smart. They're not giving up any big plays downfield. They're tackling well, and they're also just really executing the game plan, I think. They did not let Megatron take over this game. I believe he only had like 54 yards yesterday with like 5 catches, and the Vikings didn't give him any big plays. The longest play on the day was a 26-yard pass to Nate Burleson, and then Michaela Shore's longest run was 14 yards, and it was a play where Jamarcus Sanford forced the fumble. And the Lions, I don't know why they even try to run the ball, especially when they have no success doing it, because I guarantee you, when you're running the ball for under a yard a carry for a majority of the game, you can do a little bit better with a first down pass or a second down pass. I mean, they have a good quarterback in Matt Stafford, and at least in recent years, the Vikings defense has been very exposable. I mean, if you can't beat them deep, there's always holes in between the zones, and this year the Vikings are playing a lot better in pass coverage, I think. I mean, they're still giving up a lot of yards, but they're not giving up big chunks and just first down after first down after first down. The defense is playing much stronger this year, and I'm not sure how much of an effect that is with the new new defensive coordinator, but I want to give him a lot of credit for what I've seen so far. And despite 319 yards from Stafford, he threw for no touchdowns, and the Lions were held to 13 points. Very good showing for the Vikings defense. It could have been worse for him had Pettigrew and Megatron held onto those balls in the end zone, but they didn't, and drop passes just happen. And the Vikings also won the turnover battle in this game 1-0. I mean, the Vikings, they're not turning the ball over much this season, and Christian Ponder is the only remaining starting quarterback in the NFL, I believe, without an interception. And the Vikings offense on this day was not very impressive. It did not have an offensive touchdown. Their offense did lead them to 6 points and field goals, and there was also a missed field goal by Blair Walsh, the first in his young NFL career. But Ponder did what he needed to do. He managed the football game, did not turn the ball over, and that's really all he had to do. I mean, he could take what the defense gives him, especially with a 2-score lead, run the ball with Adrian Peterson. They did a good job of stopping Adrian from taking over the game in the fourth quarter and at least keeping it close and making sure they had a chance at the end of that Hail Mary that never was to happen because Everson Griffin and Jared Allen sacked Matt Stafford. But Ponder couldn't do anything, and they took Percy Harvin out of the game. The first teams to successfully do it this year, and they did a very good job of it. I mean, they got Percy on that first end around. They got him on one of those bubble screens, and the Vikings tried it again later, and Cliff Averill knocked the pass down. The Vikings didn't really go back to Percy a whole lot the rest of the game, and they did a heavier dose of Adrian Peterson, and he had 102 yards on the ground. He moved the chains, but the Vikings passing offense, really their only spark in this game from it was Jerome Simpson, and that was basically 3 plays. Now, the Vikings attacked the corners in this weak secondary of the Lions early, and they went to Jerome Simpson 2 times and drew flags on both occasions. That got the Vikings first downs off penalties. And then in the fourth quarter, Ponder threw a deep pass to Simpson for their longest play on offense on the day, actually the longest play total in this game on offense for any team, and it was a 27-yard completion to Jerome Simpson. That was a terrific catch, great play, what we need to see a lot more of, and what we didn't see when we had Troy Williamson and Bernard Berrian and everybody else who tried to replace Randy Moss with. So hopefully Jerome Simpson at least has the intimidation factor down the field and can make plays and is a little bit more reliable than Bernard Berrian, which won't be that hard, I think. He's already done a pretty good job getting 4 catches and 50 yards yesterday in his first game of action on the road. And so the Vikings offense, they could have done a whole lot better, but they could have done a whole lot worse as well. If Ponder throws a couple of picks in this game, this could be a very different game, but he's holding on to the football, and he's playing very smart. He's not going to try to test this defense and try to force passes when it's not necessary, especially with a 2-score lead, because a pick 6, that's a huge momentum shift, and it does not need to happen. And Ponder so far is impressing me the way he's managing the game, not making mistakes, and he has made plays when he has needed to this year. But yesterday, there wasn't a whole lot of pressure on the offense because the Detroit offense wasn't really pushing him very hard, and the Vikings already had a lead thanks to special teams, and so the offense did just enough to score 20 points. They had 2 more field goals besides the special teams touchdowns, and I expect better from them at home next week against Tennessee, and the Vikings always play pretty good at home, and so I want to see a little bit better passing attack in that game. But I'm really impressed with the Vikings team so far. Their defense is definitely playing very well. They're a hard-hitting bunch, and they're getting to the quarterback. They sacked Stafford 5 times, including the last play of the game, and Everson Griffin, I'm really liking him right now. I knew he's had the potential, and the Vikings have found a good role for him being a nickel pass rusher, which he did a lot of last year, and he's just been doing a great job. I think he has the speed to definitely contain fast quarterbacks and to really put pressure on the quarterbacks to get the ball out quickly once he gets free, because he is very fast for the size that he is. And overall yesterday, good win for the Minnesota Vikings. They're 3-1. They're first place in the NFC North no matter what happens with the Chicago and Dallas game, because they have a win against a division opponent in the Lions. And so 3-1 going into the next week at home against the Titans. Vikings just cannot afford to get overconfident, and they just have to keep carrying this momentum and success into future weeks if they're going to be a reliable team towards December. And for the Detroit Lions, now entering their bye week, a much-needed bye week, a good time for it being a 1-3 football team, and they really have to rebound. They have a tough schedule of games left to go, especially here. Their next game, they have Philadelphia, and after the bye week, if they fall to 1-4, that is very big. This was a good team last season, and they're not off to a very good start this year, obviously. So for the Lions, they just have to regroup and hopefully rebound with that offense, and that offense can score points. I like the addition of Mikel Ashore. Regardless of how he played against Minnesota, the Vikings always have a very good rush rush defense. But the Lions clearly have work to do if they're going to be competitive towards the end of the season, but it's only a quarter of the way through, still a lot of football left to be played. And so that is my thoughts on the game, guys. Good day for the Vikings, even though their offense did not really play all that well. Detroit's defense definitely stepped up, but the Vikings had the victory in this game, in the first divisional game of the season for both teams. 20-13, Vikings 3-1, one of the bigger surprises in the NFL. And so I'm looking forward to Week 5, but thank you guys for watching. Leave your thoughts on this game in the comment section, and I'll see you guys next time.